Hi. Uh, this is going to be two examples of how people that are evil wish to do evil to people who do not deserve to be treated that way, but they lay out all these nice plans to uh, basically murder people that uh, haven't done anything to deserve it. The first example is going to be in Exodus, and I'm going to start in chapter 1. And in verse 8, it says, "Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that, when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses, I think is how those are pronounced. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. In other words, they got there too late. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, Because I drew him out of the water. Now there's a lot of parallels in that right there. The ark, it saved Moses. Later on, an ark saved Noah and his family. Um, and The water, well, that's going to come into play later at the Red Sea. Um, but the point in this message is this Pharaoh decided he was going to be mean to the Jews. He decided he was going to kill the men children, aka little boys that were born. And he didn't really have a reason. He just had a suspicion, what if? And so he decided to kill them. Now, probably most of you, if not all of you, know how that wound up. Moses later on said to, went in and told the Pharaoh, God told him, said, let my people go. And of course, he didn't. And there were, all kinds of things happened to the Egyptians because they wouldn't let God's people go. Like one, was the most famous was the locusts. Frogs, the water turned to blood. There's a lot of things that went wrong with them. But the worst thing was the last. And and it involves what is known as the Passover. They killed a lamb and put the blood on the sides of their doors and on the top and on the other side. And the death angel came and said, when I see the blood, I'll pass over. That's how it got its name, Passover. And when it came to that point, this is over in chapter 12. It says, and they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire his head with his legs and with the purtenance thereof, and you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning you shall burn with fire. Basically, he's saying, cook it and eat all you can. And the importance of that is when it says they'll eat it and have your loins girded. That means it's time to go, boys. You eat this lamb, you need to be ready to go. And in verse 11 it says, then thus shall you eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall you eat the unleavened bread. Even the first day you shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. That's telling them how to celebrate the Passover after that. The Pharaoh still didn't want to let God's people go. And most of us know that didn't play very well. In verse 29 of Exodus 12, it says, And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up, and get you forth from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said. Also take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians. They got their pay for all the mistreatment, is what it comes down to. But the point is, they decided that all of the Jews needed to have their men, children die. But who did it wind up costing? Even the Pharaoh's son died. So they have these great plans to do evil to people that didn't deserve to be treated that way. But it backfired on them. Now here's another example of that. And this is in Esther. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in chapter 3, it says, After these things did King, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, Ahasuerus, maybe, promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. And Mordecai, who was Esther's dad, bowed not, nor did him reverence. And of course, as always, they're snitches, Well, he's not doing it. He's not bowing down to you. Okay. Anyway, it says, Now it came to pass when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom, and even the people of Mordecai. And then he made this plan. He was gonna get rid of Mordecai and his family and stuff, and the Jews, period. And so he made all these wonderful plans to get rid of them, especially Mordecai. And Mordecai did good to the king. He told him about some people that were planning on overthrowing him, killing him, all that stuff. and his daughter Esther. He didn't know that Esther was Mordecai's daughter, but it came to play later. Uh, and Anyway, Mordecai, did the sackcloth and ashes, uh, and fasted for 3 days. Uh, and Esther uh, asked that uh, her and her family was taken care of. Uh, but in chapter 5, verse 9, it says, Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. For when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, he refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and his wife. And it goes on to tell uh, that his plan was to hang Mordecai. Uh, in chapter 6, verse 4, and the king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servants said unto him, Behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, Let him come in. So Haman came in. When the king said unto him, What shall be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, To whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself? And Haman answered the king, For the man whom the king delighteth to honor, let the royal apparel be brought which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head. He's telling what all the wonderful things that he deserves and all of this stuff. Now, the gallows that Haman had built to hang Mordecai on was 50 cubits high. As the norm, these days they say that a cubit is about 1.5 feet. So this was at least 75 feet high. He's going to make sure everybody sees that he's dead. And Esther went and told the king what was going on. And so in chapter 7, verse 8, Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. Then said the king, Will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbona, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, Behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, Hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. Okay, so you look at people in the district of criminals and other places, not just there, but they've got plans to basically be mean, cruel, vicious, inhumane, spiteful, all that, to people that haven't done anything wrong except not be one of the elitists. And, the Pharaoh made all these plans, wound up costing him his son, and then eventually his own life and the army of Egypt. This deal here, Haman was planning on getting rid of Mordecai and the other Jews, and wound up costing him his life. He got hung on the gallows that he built to hang somebody else on. Point is, God is going to take care of his people. And those that think that they're special and all that, there is a thing called backfire. And if any of you elitists happen to see this, things can backfire. You need to stop it. You need to treat people like they should be treated, not how you want them to be treated. You need to stop being mean to people and making all these evil plans. Because God says, vengeance is mine, and I will repay. You need to watch what you're doing and all the plans you're making. I love y'all. See you next time.